Uh-oh, it's another episode, y'all. For those that don't,
Uh-oh.
we're back at it again. It's Tuesday night, y'all, 5 p.m. It's your man, Cat.
And it's Kwesi, and this is the Cat and Kwesi show. We offer self-care, fitness, and finance advice, especially for people of color.
This series is brought to you by Heal the Hood, where we're actually going back into our inner city communities and educating, motivating, and inspiring those to live a better and healthier life.
Amen. Amen. This series is also brought to you by Alignment Agency, where we unite wealth and wellness. And today's episode is
Ooh.
balance versus imbalance. And we actually have an amazing special guest speaker who's joining us today. I have this incredible intro. Kat, you want me to read it or are you going to
Yeah,
take the
go
reign?
ahead, man. No, go ahead.
Oh, man.
You have
Oh,
a
man.
certain pizzazz about you when you introduce people.
I love it. I love it. Well, let me read this beautiful intro. And if you're watching this live with us, you can definitely see it. But this is Mrs. Kenya Aissa. Am I saying that correctly?
You are saying it correctly, but we mostly say Asa. My husband's
Asa.
family says Asa, yes.
Okay, Kenya Aissa, and she is a holistic empowerment coach, a public speaker, a training facilitator, and a yoga teacher. She began working with women diagnosed with post traumatic stress disorder, aka PTSD, and substance abuse issues in the late 1990s, which is when her study of holistic health, Ayurveda, oh my goodness, help me with that
Very
one.
good. Very good.
Ayurveda,
Yes.
bam.
Come
So
on,
good.
nailed
So
it.
good.
Nailed it. And so Ayurveda and medicinal herbalism began. As a mental health professional, she has a particular interest in the connection of food and mood disorders in the Black community. Oh my goodness.
Oh,
We're going to talk about that one. Her 2018 book, yes, she is an author. Her 2018 book, Sacred Girl Spiritual Life Skills for Conscious Young Women. Oh my goodness, was inspired by a spirituality group that she created for young women and translated into a college workshop series. Goodness gracious. Her most recent written work, The Sacred Art of Divine Fearlessness, was published in November 2019 as part of a book compilation, Coffee and Conversation Warm Cups of Self Care, a
mm.
book written by women for women. So, with all that being said, if I can summarize it, Mrs. Kenya is an amazing, amazing, well traveled woman, very, very good with her words as well as her work. And I'm excited for y'all to meet her today. Kenya,
Come
talk to
on.
Oh
us.
my goodness.
We back in Oakland, y'all. We had to do a sideshow for her real quick.
Thank you. Thank you. That brought back so much. Hearing that
Amen.
intro out loud.
Amen. Amen. So, talk to us, Kenya. What brings you here today? What do the people need to hear from you today that just might change their life?
Wow. Just putting it on me. Um, so we are going to talk about balance versus imbalance in our
Mm.
lives. And man, if 2020 hasn't taught us nothing at all, it's that we really need to bring more balance into our lives. And we really need to have strong senses of self and strong boundaries and a commitment to our own wellness, mental, physical, spiritual. People are always saying, God, 2020 was a dumpster fire and all of these things, all
Yeah.
true, all
Yeah.
true. But if there's one thing I can say is for me and for a lot of people that I know, it certainly brought a lot of things into perspective. And it certainly showed us where we lack as far as
Mhm.
balance goes in our lives. And that for some of us, it really needs to be enhanced, prioritized, and we need to learn more how to be and feel more balanced in our lives. So I'm
Mm.
excited about this conversation.
Yeah, so make sure as the audience tunes in, make sure you're commenting because we want to get your feedback on balances within your life and the imbalances in your life. Because I know sometimes I can feel off, y'all. Like I feel like I'm all over the place. Life feels like, I can't get a hold of it sometimes. But then it's something, certain practices that I have to help balance me out personally that I've been practicing over the last couple of years. But my brother Kwesi doesn't believe there's balance in life.
Yeah.
Well,
We had a little talk. We had a little talk off air, and he was like, "Balance? There
hold
is
up,
no balance."
hold up.
I was like,
He's
I,
"Okay."
calling you
I
out.
said, "We're
He's
gonna
yeah,
calling
we're,
you
yeah,
out,
we're gonna
Kwesi.
bring it. We're gonna bring it to the air." Or
yeah.
He's
maybe
calling
you
you
could
out.
elaborate better on what you meant, brother Kwesi, so we can
Absolutely,
get that conversation
absolutely.
going.
One thing I will say is it seems like most, if not all of us, are on a constant pursuit of balance or of this thing that we call balance, right?
Yeah.
And part of our show today is going to be dedicated towards finding out what exactly does that mean to have balance, right? Because it seems like all of us are pursuing it, but if we had to point it out, right, outside of a feeling that we have, what does it look like, right? And one thing that I learned from my mentors throughout life is anything worth having is going to imbalance your life, right? That's
Mm.
something that I found time and time again. I even think of the beauty of creating life, right? And a woman literally pushing a human being out of her body. If that's not imbalance for 9 months, feeding two people inside of one body, I don't know what is, but look what's created as a result of that. And even once the child is born, right? The late nights that you're staying up, all the throw up that's on your body and on your favorite blouse. It's like,
Blouse.
um,
What
what?
blouse? I was
No,
lucky to get into real clothes.
bam.
She was like, "You must not have
You
any
mean my
kids."
pajamas?
Right, right. Other blouse. But just plainly speaking, right? I believe that anything worth having in life is going to imbalance your life, and that imbalance is intentional because when we do have balance, I feel like more often than not, human beings are wired to create some sort of imbalance, to create some sort of disruption because it is part of what makes us feel alive, right? For the better or for the worse. So it's not that I don't believe in balance. I just don't know what it looks like.
Yeah, I
And
don't think a lot of us know what it looks like.
That's
You
right.
know
yes,
what I'm saying?
That's
yes.
right.
So
That's
when
right.
a client comes to you and they're looking for balance in their life, Ruby, like what are some of the conversations that you have with them?
I love how you called me Ruby.
Me too.
Miss
Because I
Kenya.
know you bounce back and forth as everyone does. And
Yeah.
for people who don't know, that's my grandmother's name, so I love it.
Ooh.
Um, uh, so I I agree with both sides. So I believe that yes, you can have balance, and I also agree with Kwesi that um, that there's a lot of imbalance, and some of that we need in order to move forward or in order to have goals. Because if we aren't feeling some sort of imbalance, then why do we need to have goals? Because everything's fine,
Mm.
you
Yeah.
know. But and the truth of the matter is that we have to create balance, but
Mm.
it doesn't last from day to day to day to day. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a monk in the Himalayas. I don't care. Even they have to meditate, right? So there has to be some tools in order to create that balance because it is not constant. You can have a day where you're feeling everything is right.
Mm.
We have those days where, like, I had one of those days yesterday. I woke up early, never happens. I did a dance class online. Yesterday, I was just killing the game, you know, and, but I know that that was yesterday and the day before was not like that. And so then the question and the goal is, what do we do to bring ourselves back into balance? And how much of a priority is that for us? Why do we feel like we need to be more balanced? What are the things that cause us problems if we're not more balanced mentally, physically, spiritually? And also, what does balance mean from person to person?
Exactly.
So if you are someone who feels like, for you, for me, balanced means grounded and not always, oh, like all super peaceful, but an ability to get myself peaceful, an
Mm,
ability. Do you see what I'm saying? So
yeah,
you don't always have to be living in that space of, calm, floating on clouds of wonderfulness.
I have to
But
be there in a state of.
right, I am
Mm.
aware. Boom.
Let me throw
But
something out there from
you
my
have
own
to have the
personal
ability to
experience.
get yourself there. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. I know growing up, you know, um, I was taught or programmed that, males have to be the provider, right? Go get it, feed the family, you know, and, the woman, she can work or she can be at home with the kids, right? And once I started being more of an entrepreneur, I realized that that might have not been the truth, right? In the
Mm,
sense of I needed to find balance within my household, right? Going out working 10 to 12-hour days, being away from the kids and the wife and the whole nine, I felt very imbalanced in my own personal lifestyle. And I was like, well, this is the whole reason I left corporate America to be able to be with my family and not miss out on certain moments. And now I'm finding myself going back to my old ways, my old programming, right? And I had to look at it as like, man, I want to be there for my wife to, give her a break when she needs it away from the kids. And I want to be there for my kids just in general because I know how it can be as a young man when you don't have a father present. You know what I'm saying? A lot of things can grab your attention. You can get pulled in a lot of different directions, right? So I had to find that father work balance in my own personal life where I felt comfortable, right? Where I didn't feel like I was giving away too much of my time to my business, where I was gonna look up and my all my kids were gonna be grown adults and I was be like, where did the time go?
right.
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 So that in my own personal experience, I was like, okay, what am I willing to sacrifice? I can work 3 to 4 days and bust my butt and be away from the house, but another 4 days, 3 to 4 days, be at the house and be invested in being present with my kids and my family.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things in my own personal journey. And it's other things that have gone on where I had to find that comfort and that balance within myself. Because once you start just going everywhere, when you start putting things in the universe, you get pulled in 100 different
Right.
directions,
Right.
right? You
Right.
have to have some kind of direction within yourself that allows you to stay on the road that keeps you the happiest. And I feel like
Right.
balance and happiness kind of coincide with each other.
Mm.
Well,
Does that make
it
sense,
sounds like
y'all?
it does. And it sounds like you saw that there was a cost to
Yeah,
Yeah.
imbalance
yeah.
and you
In my
weren't willing.
personalized.
Right. And so we can be not willing to pay that price and still find ourselves in times of imbalance, right? So even though you experienced the cost of imbalance, you you had to make an intention. You had to set an intention, and that's one of the things that we talk about in yoga all the time
Mm.
is setting an intention, because if you don't know what the problem is, if you can't put a name to the problem, then you can't address the problem.
Mm,
So you have to actively and consciously set that intention. What is it you are willing to do? What is it you're willing to change? And also having boundaries and being able to say no. I always say you have the power of no is that you can put more energy into your yeses.
yeah.
Okay. So the things that you feel like you do want to prioritize, and we are more than just worker bees. We're more, and
You
this
mean
is
I'm not
this
supposed
is
to
the
work
country,
60
right?
years until I die, Miss Kenya?
Right. Well,
Uh-oh.
I'm supposed to
you know
enjoy
that I'm with
myself
you.
during this
You know that I'm
process?
with you on that.
Uh-oh.
I retired 3 years ago for that very reason. So I knew I'd be losing that steady paycheck, that cushy paycheck, that amazing health insurance. I knew I'd be losing all of that, and I would just be some broke chick out here just trying
But
to do my
let's talk about that. What
yeah.
is being broke though? What we're
Right.
programmed, you know what I'm saying? We're
Right.
programmed to say, "Oh, if I don't have these material things in front of
Right.
me,
Hmm.
that I'm not balanced, I'm not equal,
Right.
I'm not
Right.
living the American dream."
And I didn't feel like that personally. I'm
Uh-huh.
not one of those people that I feel like I need to have, whatever, a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a simple person. I grow my own food. I like to, I want to move somewhere where I can have goats and chickens. I'm a simple girl. I'm a simple girl. All I need is a really good lipstick or 20 or 30 and some ground to grow my food.
There you
But
go.
but yeah, I mean, we are in America and we are in the Bay Area and it's expensive. It's expensive to live here. It is no joke. And so there has to be, when we're talking about balance, there has to be reality, a
Mhm.
reality check on how much, like you were saying about corporate America, how much of yourself were you going to give to that?
Yeah.
Hmm.
And then how much of yourself were you going to say, some of those things are not as important as I originally thought they were. There are things that are more important. And so now I have to figure out how to do both. And that's where the balance comes in. I have to figure out
Mhm.
how to be that provider that you grew up believing you had to be. And also, how can you give that part of yourself that has nothing to do with money to your family
Mm.
that needs you?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because, your kids want you there, want you
Yeah.
Yeah.
close. I was working 12, 14 hours a day
Yeah.
Yeah.
at my job as a social worker with other people's children. The
Mm.
irony, you
Yeah.
know, and I loved that part of my job, but there's that whole what's happening with my child, you
Exactly.
know. So it's making choices, saying no so we can say have better yeses.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And one thing that I've found, and especially my entrepreneurial journey, is that the first few years are definitely the most difficult, right? In terms of, especially coming from an employee background, right? And not really knowing how to run a business, not really knowing or understanding that some nights it's required for you to work past 5 o'clock, past 6 o'clock, past 9 o'clock, right?
Yep.
And those things are, it's part of the journey, right? But also understanding that, have you ever heard of a man named Malcolm Gladwell? Have you
Malcolm
ever heard that
Gladwell.
name, bro? So
Not off the
Mm-mm,
he's
top of my head. If you
no
could
big deal,
refresh our
right?
memory.
I got you. I got you. So he's an author and he wrote this book called Outliers, right? And in the Outliers, he talks about what's called the 10,000 hour rule, right? The
Yeah.
10,000 hour rule. So
To be an
basically,
expert. Or
bam,
yeah,
right?
I've heard
Or
it.
an expert in your field,
Yeah.
right? So 10,000 hours or 10 years, whichever comes first, right? And
Mhm.
there's literally a way to turn those 10,000 hours into 3 to 5 years, right? Just
Mhm.
mathematically speaking, because if you're
Yeah.
working 8 hour days, it's going to take you 10 years. But if you compound 12-hour days for 6 days a week, then in 3 to 5 years, you'll have mastered that skill.
Mm.
mm,
And if the skill is going to allow you to become financially free, which is ultimately what we're all pursuing in some way, shape, or form, we're all
Yeah.
pursuing the ability to live a life without being concerned about the impact of money, right? The impact of, do I have enough, right? Especially when it comes to spending more time with our family, spending more time with ourselves, taking our wives and husbands on better dates, or just living a life
yeah.
that's not constricted by the need for money, right? And so the reason that I say this is because the work that I do is a lot bigger than just getting money. It's a lot bigger than that, right? It's showing people how to tap into an infinite resource that ultimately starts in our minds, right? It doesn't start externally. Abundance is an internal feeling that's reflected by our external circumstances. So I say all that to, oh, what's up? Talk to me.
No, no, no,
Talk to
please. I
me.
want to hear what you're about to follow that up with.
Okay. So ultimately, I believe that the sometimes 16-hour days that I put, like, for example, last night I was up working. I closed the laptop at 9 o'clock, but I finished working at about 10 o'clock, right? Fortunately, my wife and I had some time to grab dinner way past my eating schedule. But at around 10 o'clock, I eventually got in the bed around 1 o'clock and I was up at 7 a.m. and my first appointment was at 8, right? So as an employee, that would be a terrible existence to have, absolutely terrible. But as an entrepreneur, understanding that those hours of sleep that I missed out on and I converted into energy that's pushing my business and my dream forward, and understanding I do this for enough days, enough weeks, enough months, enough years. I compound those efforts, and everything I'm doing now is going to pay me for the rest of my life.
So
That's a
what happens when your wife has the crying baby and
man,
you're working those hours? You know what I'm saying?
man.
And
Yeah,
it's your shift to
yeah,
go to make the bottle. You know what I'm saying? It's
yeah,
like it's a lot of different things that we got to talk about. It's easier said than done. You
Get
know what
from
I'm saying?
with a couple of kids.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
and like I look at it, man, I'm right there with you, Kwesi. Like I want to create something where I can look forward and say, hey, I have this platform, this machine that
hmm,
provides me the resources, the financial resources, and everything that I need as an entrepreneur to do any any kind of investments or whatever I want to do in my life, right?
hmm,
But as you're saying that, right?
hmm,
What with those sacrifices, you know what I'm saying? 12, 16-hour days, because I was moving up in corporate America,
yeah,
making those sacrifices, you know.
yeah,
I start entry level and work my way up in different companies and and then I look and I was like, dang, my oldest son, he's going to middle school, right?
wow,
Now he's in high school. And I'm like, okay, I can put in those extra 3 to 4 hours, but what does that mean at the end of the day when my oldest son doesn't have his dad there to hang out with and they want to do something, right? Do I tell
Right.
him that dad has to hang out on the computer and do something for the next 3 to 4 hours because it's business related or with clients or whatever the case may be? Just like a perfect example today, right? Today, I train a very minimal amount of clients on my Tuesdays, right? I maybe have
hmm,
like one, two, maybe three clients, unlike my Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays where I have a full schedule. The
yeah,
reason being is because I know I need to spend time with my mom. We've talked on previous episodes about our relationship growing up with our moms and stuff like that.
hmm,
And my mom, she worked 32 years at the post office, 33
right,
years, where she was working 10 to 12-hour
Mm,
days, 5 to 6 days a week, right? So she was there, but she wasn't there in the same sense, right?
hmm,
And I don't want to have that relationship with my kids where as adults, now we're just now developing relationships, right? Because now I feel like just today I had a conversation with my mom that I never had in my whole life. And it's been
hmm,
30 plus years, right? And it was a connection like, dang, me and my mom got a lot in common.
yeah,
But having that time to be able to do that, I can run up my schedule 5 days, 6 days a week and train, work, work, work. But then I look up, my dad might not be here in a year or two, right?
hmm,
Because of his age. My mom's getting up in age. My kids are getting older. Like, what balance do I want for myself at the end
yeah,
of the day? Is it worth making those sacrifices and then losing those loved ones around me? Or do I say, okay, I can live off of this and I feel really good about it. This is exactly what I need, right?
yeah,
well, let me comment on that, because one thing that I find that's so interesting about this conversation is you two gentlemen, you two kings, are here. We're talking about balance and we're talking about family, and you two are talking about money.
Hmm.
aha,
Yeah.
Okay. This is a conversation I have with my husband all the time, too.
hmm,
We are conditioned in our culture to think of everything as coming back to money.
Mm.
And it's really true. And so that is exactly why we are we overdo it in so many aspects of our lives. We train our children to overdo it. We have kids in this lesson, that lesson, schooling, violin classes, blah, 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 all of the things, so that we can train them to work hard, so that by the time they get into the workforce or even into college, they are already trained to work like dogs. And I was no different. I would go straight from school across the street to tap class, ballet class, trampoline class,
Mm.
track, basketball. I did all the things. I could not have been worse a basketball player. I'm a horrible basketball player. I played basketball for 9 years.
Mm.
Okay.
It's a long time.
And so what we're doing, there's even a book called The Overscheduled Child. Okay, there is a book called The Overscheduled Child, because that is what we do. We were That was done to us. We're trained to be in the workforce because we're told, if you don't do this, you're gonna starve to death or you won't be able to support
Ah,
your family.
Kwesi, let me ask you a question. As a
You
black
know,
man, do you feel like you have to work twice as hard to succeed in life?
that's a great question. In the past, absolutely, right?
Yeah.
And before
mm,
I discovered what it means to be an entrepreneur and to travel this journey, I was in that mindset of I have to work twice as hard to get half as much.
Yeah.
And that's
mhm,
absolutely the case when somebody is standing over your shoulder saying, you don't talk white enough, right?
mhm,
Mm.
Your wife isn't pretty enough. Your
mhm.
suits aren't nice enough, right? When somebody else has control over my life, then that absolutely applies to my circumstances. But when I can take the reins over my own, and this is so, I want to touch on this because I I grew up in a middle class household, right?
Mm.
In every sense of the word. I didn't grow up around drugs. I didn't grow up around prostitution. I didn't grow up around, domestic violence, just all the crap that plagues a lot of our community out here in what we call the real world, right? I was very sheltered, but one thing I found is that even though we had what seemed like enough money, it wasn't enough to protect our family when my stepdad got laid off on his day off, right? It
Wow.
wasn't enough. He worked hard as hell, right? When you talk about
Mhm,
working like a dog, I got my work ethic in a majority of ways from him, right? So
mhm.
I've seen what it looks like to give your all to something. I've also seen what it looks like to get nothing in return. And one
Right.
thing I've found in it, like I want to be very, very intentional, especially with our listeners, of separating the conversation we're having, because it's one thing to work for somebody else for your entire life, right? Because that's designed for you to keep going back to that. It's like a morphine drip, right? And
Yep.
it's like the only way you get that drip is by clocking in, right? That's the only way you get that drip. As soon as you clock out, you don't get that
Yep.
drip, and then you're starving, right? That's how it's designed, right? They make you addicted to that paycheck every 2 weeks, when in reality, you're earning way less than you make the company.
Yeah.
Way less. It's like a tenth, if that. They're paying you
It's
a
that.
tenth of what they actually make from what you produce,
Right.
as opposed to being an entrepreneur where you take on 100% of the responsibility and you take on a much larger portion. So it's not, I just want to be clear. I'm not just talking about money. I'm talking about freedom. And I'm talking about
Right. Oh,
freedom
sure.
in a capitalistic society where the
Right.
people on this screen weren't brought here to be entrepreneurs. We weren't even brought here to be employees. We were brought
Yeah.
here to be slaves,
Yeah.
right? Like everything outside of that, we literally created, right? Through working hard as hell. But I
Right.
will say, in a lot of ways, I feel like we're digging ourselves out of a hole, right? We're digging ourselves, and I'm so grateful that there have been a lot of leaders, right? Like the Martin Luther Kings and the Fannie Lou Hamers and the Malcolm X's and even Barack and Michelle and Oprah. However you feel about them, they've all served a purpose in helping us to advance as a people, as a culture, as a race. But at the same time, we're not there yet, right? And I don't want to rest on my laurels pretending, because I'm still running from dogs. I'm still wading in the water. I'm still
Yep.
trying to get free. So this
Mhm,
idea of balance, it has a very different connotation to me, because
mhm,
I was born into imbalance. And yes, I'm seeking
mhm.
balance, but I understand that what I'm doing now, I have the opportunity to guarantee at the very least,
Yep.
my kids and my grandkids and my great grandkids would never have to worry about working for money. At the very
Mhm,
least, I might not be
mhm.
able to give them balance or peace or the ability to meditate or even find themselves, but I can guarantee you'll never have to spend 30 years of your life working for somebody who will replace you in an instant, right? So
Right.
I want balance, but I also want freedom, and I want to find a way to have
Right.
both, right?
And it's how we define freedom too, because financial freedom, that is something that seems elusive to, and we've been trained like that. We've been trained like that. I remember 6 years ago or so when I was it 6 years ago? Yeah, because I was on a family vacation and I was sitting in Puerto Rico with my mom and my aunt, and I was saying, I think I need to get out of this job because at my job, people were like literally dying from stress. And when I say literally dying, I mean falling on the floor at their desk, in the office. Very, very stressful job. And I told my mom and my aunt, I need to find a way to get out of this before I'm one of those people. And you should have seen the looks on their faces because, like Kat was saying, he was trained that as a man, you do this, you do that, and the other in order to take care of your family so that your wife can take care of the kids, whatever. In my family, I was taught that the woman has to make sure that she's bringing in a paycheck because you cannot rely on a man to to bring home anything.
Uh-oh.
You know,
Yeah.
so
Uh-oh.
so I was raised like that. I went to an all women's college where that was also kind of it fostered, into me. And so I've always been able to support myself and all these other things, even though I'm married. I've been married for a long time, but it was always in my mind. You never know what life is going to give you. You cannot rely on somebody being there to pick up the pieces, and just 5 years ago or so, my best friend found that out when her husband passed away suddenly at the age of 44. Suddenly stood up, fell to, you know, and so then what? Who have you got? You know, and so there, but we die of stress in this country too. And so that balance has to be, how much are you willing to give? How much, and then when the kids come along, like Kat was saying, that's a whole different world
A whole
of
nother
stuff.
beast.
A
Yeah.
whole different thing. I said so many things, y'all, before I had my child is 11. Before I had my child, I was like, oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So many things went straight out the window because we have to make choices. We have
Yeah.
to prioritize certain things, and that can lead to imbalance. And I read this question? Ms. Trevina
Yeah.
Catley says, what is freedom to you, Kenya? And thank you, honey. That's a beautiful question. For me, it is just being able to breathe, and I don't need a whole bunch of money. Money's great. I love money. I really do. But freedom for me really is, and we're teaching my child this too, how to be self-sufficient, how to grow your own food. That is so important to me, you guys. It seems like such a little thing, but especially with this pandemic, knowing that I can go out front and pick my food instead of having to go to the store, and teach my child how to do that too, because we don't know where we're going to end up. We don't know what this, especially with this past administration, I didn't know what was going to happen here. But being able to feed yourself, it's so basic. It's so basic. But that I just need that base, knowing how to feed myself and feed my family and feed my community. We have people in the neighborhood that come by asking for stuff out of the yard. So just doing stuff like that, that means I'm not a slave to somebody else providing me with the basic necessity of food.
So let me chime in real quick.
Yeah.
So if we all had a house that was paid for, we had a piece of land where we were growing our own food and everything, and that was taken care of, right? How much of a push would we still be looking to get that money, right? And how much time will we be investing in our family and other things that we love to do?
That's an amazing
Re- that-
question.
Huh? You know what I'm saying? If we had a house that was taken care of, didn't have to
Yeah,
worry about buying a house, any of that, had a little
yeah,
piece of land where we had food that was readily available for us, how much of what we're talking about now, going to go get it and all that, I'm not saying not go get it.
yeah,
Sure.
I'm saying how much stress would we put on that, you know?
yeah.
Because I know, go ahead,
Oh no,
Chris.
I would love to like this is such an important conversation because you're absolutely right. Like we came into this conversation talking about balance, and I don't think it was through any forceful means. It came back to money,
Yeah,
right? And money
Yeah.
or a lack thereof, right?
yeah,
And I feel like this is such an important conversation, Kat. That's an amazing question, right? Because it's really a
Mhm.
matter of what are we ultimately pursuing, right?
yeah.
Because my ultimate pursuit is not financial freedom. That's a pursuit, and it's going
Mhm.
to open up a much larger window for me to look at the world through, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm most excited about. But I understand coming from a background of community activism, coming from a background of service, coming from a
Yep.
background of being the oldest sibling, right? I
Mm.
understand that freedom for one is not freedom for all. And I
Mhm.
also understand that capitalism as a structure, the employee system as a structure, the prison industrial complex as a structure are all oppressive forces on my community and people who look like me. And I
Yeah.
understand that a major reason, Tupac said all the time, I ain't never did a crime I ain't have to do.
Mhm.
I ain't never did a crime I have to do. What creates a system, what creates a nation, what creates a culture that is dependent on crime to survive? And who defines what a crime is?
Yeah.
Mm.
So like,
So
I
the
love
wealth
that
gap.
question. But that's part of it. That's part like
Yeah.
it. Money is just a tool, right? And
Yeah.
I
Sure.
want people like if you're listening to this, really understand what that means. Money is not everything, but it's pretty damn important. It's up there with freaking oxygen, right? Even I live out here in East Oakland, and I look outside and I see people committing domestic violence in public, like in broad daylight, right? With no shame. I see people doped up on Lord knows what, walking up and down my block. And I don't even live in the bad part of East Oakland. That's the crazy part, right? But
Yeah.
I understand this is a direct result of people's circumstances. And I'm not saying all those circumstances are finance based, because if I put $1 million in their lap right now, they might go and buy some more dope. But
Yeah.
at
They
the
go
same
trick it
time,
off.
they trick
Mhm.
it off. And
A
at the same
gold inlaid floor.
right, right. They might, but at the
Yeah.
same time, they might be able to put themselves in a better position other than the one that they're stuck in due to a lack. Right. And I love what Tanya just said, right? Money gives you, and that's for me, that's what it's all about. And Kat,
Yeah.
to just to close, to answer your question, I have a house that's paid off. I have land. I'm able to feed my family. What about my neighbor?
Mhm.
Right? What
Right.
about my community? What about my culture? What about the entire continent of Africa? Right?
Yeah.
So I'm not just in pursuit of gain for self, even though
Right.
I know in order to change the world, I have to change myself. If I want the world to have choices, whether that comes through financial freedom or other means, I got to get financially free. Right.
Mhm.
So anyway, I hope that answers the question, man.
Amen.
So you brought up a great point though, because it's certain people out there that if, like you said, if you gave them $1 million,
Mhm.
they'd trick it off just as fast as they got it. And
Yeah.
plenty of people have.
Happens all the
You know what
time.
I'm saying?
Happens all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, people,
Yeah.
what's that the lottery curse? Like
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
95% of the people that win the lotto,
That's right.
100 million, whatever it might be, within
Yeah.
a couple years, all gone.
All
All
Right?
gone.
gone.
How do we can't even fathom if we had that, we can't even fathom how we would trick off that much money that fast, right?
Right. And they might
But
have
if you
said
have
the
a poor
same thing.
mindset, huh?
They might have
Yeah,
said the same thing,
yeah, they
you
could
know.
have. They could have
Yeah.
said the
Mhm.
exact same thing. Oh, if I
Mhm.
hit the big lotto, I'm
Mhm.
$100 million, I'd never go broke, right?
Yeah.
But then you have a poor mindset, you have a poor education around finances as well. You know what I'm saying? You grew up with only a certain amount of knowledge on that. And that comes with balance as well. Because, you know, if we've been programmed and raised to only think we're supposed to reach a certain level of success, right? Whatever that may mean to you, right? Because, you know, we all look at success in different kind of ways, but why, with that cap, whatever that may be for you, it's like, man, why try hard? You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? Why put in that effort? Like
Mhm.
some people can't even fathom being an entrepreneur. Like that doesn't
Yeah.
even that doesn't
Yeah.
even make sense to them. Like, what?
Right.
No,
Yeah.
I can't. I
I
that,
wasn't
that,
raised to
that
believe in entrepreneurship.
exactly
I
the
was
first thing
absolutely not.
I can't even fathom that.
Right.
So
Right.
so
Right.
as you're doing your and we're all doing
Yeah.
our own
All of
part.
us.
Yeah. It's meeting people where they're at to help them
Mhm.
find balance in their own personal journey. That's what I've learned for myself because I'm not going to sit here and act like I have all the answers to life or any aspects of life, right? Because we're all still figuring out as we go, right? But I can have a conversation with somebody and find out what where your heart is at. I'll put it that way. Where is your heart at, right? If we're having a conversation and every couple minutes you're talking about family, you're talking about this, I know that's very important to you, right? So then
Mhm.
we can start asking bigger questions on how to spend more time, how to get that availability, all those kind of things. What sacrifices are you willing to make to get to that point, right? But
Mm.
then if other people one can be money driven, one
Yeah.
can be whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
It's looking at it at the end of the day, it's like, well, if that gives you a peace of mind, if that fulfills you as a person, if that's what gets you up and going and makes you happy every day, I can't knock you for your hustle or whatever you do, right?
Yeah.
Hmm. There's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with being driven. There's
No,
nothing wrong with being driven. There's nothing wrong with wanting to provide for not just your family, but for all of your descendants. That's a beautiful goal. The
Mhm.
question then becomes, what are you willing to shake loose as far as the balance goes, d- driving yourself for 15, 16 hours a day? What are you willing to um, do in order to listen to yourself, listen to your body? When I say like mind, body, spirit balance,
Mhm.
um, for me, stress means hair loss. You
Mhm.
know, like, and cat knows this. We've had this conversation before, where if I was getting too stressed out at my job, making the good paycheck, doing what I needed to do, and then here comes a bald spot.
Mhm.
So then I found myself creating all of these self-care strategies, which is what I do now,
can,
which is
can you give
why I
some
do that now.
self-care
Yeah.
strategies to
Yeah.
our viewers right now? I
Absolutely.
know we've been
Oh,
all over the
yes.
place with balance and everything. And that's why I wanted
Yes.
to
Yes.
not only, give our real stories of what we're experiencing with balances
Right.
and imbalances, but giving some solutions to people to go out there and implement in their own personal life as well.
Yes,
Okay.
and
So,
Ruby,
yes.
before you continue, so
Yeah.
I just want to invite everybody as she's sharing this, first and foremost, write it down, right? Give
Yeah.
respect. This woman is an author. She's an expert.
Mm.
She has degrees to do this work. Give respect by taking notes, but also the last few minutes of the show, we're going to dedicate to some Q&A. Thank you for those of y'all who have been posting already, but please post any question that you have in the chat. We might not get to all of them, but please, if you have any questions about anything we've discussed, put it in the chat.
And don't forget to hit that share button as well, y'all, because we want to get this information out to as many people as possible because we're all going through it in life. And this is what our podcast is all about is sharing our experiences, our growth, and educating and motivating others as we do it as well. Okay.
Hmm.
So go ahead and share
Sure.
some tips
Yeah.
with us,
So,
Miss Kenya.
so what I found is that all of the education in the world, all of the mentoring in the world did not prepare me for the personal experience of being overwhelmed, stressed out, and all of the problems that led to me having hair loss and all of these things. So there was no amount of education that was gonna help that. So I had to realize, there is a problem. The problem is stress. The problem is not expressing yourself, it keeping everything bottled in. And I know a lot of Black women do this. I'm just one of the many where, in order to keep things moving, we suppress and push down all of the things that we ourselves are experiencing, right? And so I was no different. And I realized that something had to change. And so I started my first self care strategy client was myself.
Mm.
And so one of the things that I started doing, I put together a whole plan for myself of making myself do things that I normally would not do and
Mm.
really didn't want to do, forcing myself. And for me, yes, vanity was part of it. Is this the kind of face that needs to be bald? I don't think so. So as the hair loss was starting, I was like, ooh, this might work if I had cheekbones, but no, I don't have
Mm.
that. So I need to get it together. I need to wrap myself up in some wellness strategies, bubble baths at night, reading, going on long walks in my neighborhood, walking. I was living in Oakland at the time, walking, thinking about what brought me joy. So when I was even writing my book years later, um, when I was looking at even the word spiritual, right, and what spiritual stands for, just like what brings you peace, what brings you joy, and asking myself those questions. What was it that used to bring me joy and happiness and things like that, looking back to my younger days,
I don't
and
think
and
we ask
then
ourselves that
grabbing.
question enough, though.
Absolutely not. So for me, it was dancing, and I just recently I started doing ballet again in my house and all this other stuff because I used to be a ballet dancer. And so yes, could I fall and break a hip at this point? Maybe, but is it worth the risk? Yes, because that is what brings me back to myself. And when we become wives and moms, and even dads and workers or whatever we're doing in our lives, we start to drift away from our original self. We start to drift away from the person that used to write poems or write stories or dance or do music or all of those, anything that is you. We start to drift away from those things because we've got things to do, we've got responsibilities, we've got people to support, and then we get put on the back burner, and then we start wondering, wow, why am I getting sick? Why is my hair falling out? Why do I have stomach problems? Why do I have IBS? All of these, why do I have fibromyalgia? All of
Mm.
these things that have come up over the past, couple of decades. um it's your body trying to tell you something.
So we're being taught not to be able to self-reflect, right? To put ourselves first and
Well, it's
understand
not
because
important. It's not
yeah,
important. Yeah.
sacrifice yourself
Self-reflecting is
essentially.
absolutely sacrifice yourself. And I got to the point where I was like, oh, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. So I did have to have boundaries, and I did have to prioritize saying no so that
So
I could,
give our
yeah,
viewers some tips on how to create
yeah.
those boundaries.
So it's really hard
Mm.
because other people in your life, your boss, your partner, your kids, your mama, they're not interested in your boundaries.
Mm.
Some of your friends, they want you there for them. And if you have already previously created a culture in your relationships where you are available, because you want to be a good friend, you want to be a good son, a good daughter, and all of those other things, you have created this situation where you're invaluable. And so that also feels good. It feels good when people love us and need us and stuff like that. But then if you get to a point where you're falling on your face because you haven't given yourself enough self care, who's there to pick you up?
Mm.
We have to be able to pick ourselves up. And that's one of the things that started me with yoga and meditation, because that was another thing that I added to my self care strategies back when I realized I had hair loss.
Mm.
Is what else can I do? So I started doing mindfulness practices. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know anything about yoga, whatever, but I started doing those things because I had to do something, or else I didn't know what was going to happen.
Mm.
You don't know what's going to happen inside your body. You may feel normal, or you may feel like, I'm just feeling a little under the weather,
Mm.
and that can really be a symptom of a greater problem. in your body, and it's a snowball effect. It just gets worse. The older we get, it just gets, we will just get sicker,
Mm.
and so the biggest thing is prioritizing your own mental and spiritual health, because your physical health will follow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Your
Cancers and
physical health
everything.
will
Yeah.
follow.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Cancers and different things can develop over having so much stress in your life each and
Oh
every day.
God. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. And I could see that in my future if I didn't make changes. I could absolutely see that in my future. Just the
Yeah.
stress and the tight chest. What is that? What does that mean for my body? What does that mean on a cellular level?
Mm.
I'm not a doctor, but I suspected it was not good news. You know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's the thing. Having to say no. Oh, can you do this today? Can you help me with this? No.
Hmm.
No is a whole sentence. You
Mm.
Yeah.
know, I need to do, instead of helping you do A, B, C, and D, I'm going to go take a bubble bath with a glass of wine and a romance novel,
Mm.
you know, something like that. And leave me alone. Don't call me. Don't knock on my door. Don't bother me. Pretend like, forget my name. Forget my name until I reach out to you, because we have to have downtime, because we have so much uptime in our society. We have so much uptime. And with cell phones and all that other stuff, we are always on our phone. And I am no different. We're always on our phone. I'm always looking at my phone for business stuff and speaking opportunities and all things, talking on things like this with you guys. It's it's a whole thing that didn't exist 75, 100 years ago,
Yeah.
and so we have to prioritize. Our bodies don't know. Our bodies do not know what's going on, you
Mm.
know. But our bodies will pay that price if we don't get it together.
Yeah, I talk to clients all the time because, getting sleep at night, getting that balance of rest, and so many people, like you just said, will be on their phones for hours and hours and get lost at night, right? And one of the things that I tell them is like, hey, you have to have a set time. You have to create a boundary where you turn off all your devices, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Turn off all the devices, quiet time, read a book, journal, whatever the case may be, to start winding down.
Right.
Because if not, you're just feeling fuel to that, right? You
Mhm.
can sit
Absolutely.
here and be in 2, 3 in the morning. It's like, oh shoot, I didn't realize it was that late. How many of
Hmm.
us has been up 2, 3 in the morning looking up stuff, watching videos, whatever,
Yeah.
researching, and it's like, oh,
Hmm.
I lost track of time, right?
Right. Right.
But
Because our brains aren't
the
getting the
stimulant,
rest. And
Mm.
then journaling, that was another thing that I did during that time. Journaling was huge. It's a huge, because then you really have to stop. You have to stop, because if you're going to be writing down and stuff like that, you can't do that while scrolling on your phone and all of those other things, because your brain has got to be able to rest. Absolutely. Tia Covington says it's addicting. It
Yeah.
is so ridiculously addicting. And I do it. Sometimes I'll be sitting there allegedly watching television
Mm.
and scrolling on my phone, and my husband will be like, put your phone down,
yeah,
because it's hard to shut off, and that is not natural. It messes with the natural rhythms of our body,
Yeah.
and that whole blue light thing on the phone. I mean, it's too
Yeah.
much.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And I really, I encourage you, if you're listening to this right now, rewind those last 5 or 6 minutes, right? Like
Mhm.
there were some key points that were mentioned that a lot of us, especially during coronavirus, especially during quarantine, when I can't tell you how many times I heard from people, well, there's nothing to do. There's everything to do.
yeah.
There's
Mhm.
everything to do, because before, our number one complaint was, I don't have enough time.
Hmm. Now you have all the time in the world.
Right.
There's nothing
Yeah,
to do. And it's
yeah,
like, people who want an excuse are going to find an excuse, but people who want to win, people who want to find a way, even when it comes to self care, right? I would
Yeah.
say that it depends how you look at it. I feel like I'm blessed because I'm much more willing to work hard than rest hard, right? Like, my wife has to remind me to sleep. My wife has to remind me to take time off. But if I had to choose, I would definitely choose that one. right?
Yeah.
And besides the point, so I really love what this discussion has been. We're actually coming to a close right now. Thank you so much, everybody that's posted in the chat. Thank you for asking your questions. But I do have a question for you, Miss Kenya. Ruby Envy Kenya. I really like Ruby. You look like a Ruby. You shop like
Oh, thank
a
you, man. I wish I looked like my grandmother. Let me tell you,
Oh man.
that's where the envy part comes from.
I believe. But while you've been on your journey, and it sounds fairly recent, right? What is time? But while you've been on your
No, 20 years.
20
About
years,
20
okay,
years. Sure.
okay, not bad,
Yeah,
not bad.
yeah.
But what have you been the most proud of accomplishing these last 20
Ooh.
years during your journey?
Oh gosh, that is an incredibly easy question to answer. Actually, what I'm most proud of is learning to say no to things that don't serve me.
Mm, yeah.
Learning to say no
How
to
did you
things that
figure out
don't
what
serve
didn't
me.
serve you? Next
Mm,
question.
I figured it out through my stress level, um, just my emotion, just the way that I was, my body was kind of manifesting my emotions, just just a feeling of everything not being, it's a big ask to say I want everything to be right or I want everything to be balanced. That's a lot to ask for. But even not having the ability to quiet my mind in a way that I later learned how to do. And that to me was everything. I mean, it completely changed my life. And so, learning how to say no and being okay with other people's disappointment.
Mm.
If
Can't
you're not
satisfy everybody.
doing, you absolutely can't. I don't even want to try. I want to.
A
I
lot
have
of us
one
do.
life to live. Oh, absolutely.
We want to make
I mean,
everybody happy.
sure, absolutely. And you can try that, but it's not healthy. It may be possible. I don't know. I'm
Uh,
never going to know because I'm never going to try that again. Um,
yeah.
you know,
but I
taking
think you have to
care of
become
yourself.
so many different people trying to satisfy everybody, right?
Yeah,
You have to be your true self, like you were saying earlier, and find those
authenticity.
that love you for who you are, your authentic self.
Live your authentic life.
Uh,
Yeah. Amen. Amen. Well, as Mr. DJ Patterson said, approval addiction.
Yes,
That's a
yes,
yeah.
good one.
sir.
That's a really, as a matter
Yes,
of fact,
sir.
that's gonna have to be a topic of a future episode, maybe part
Yes,
two
sir.
of our conversation
Mm-hmm.
with Ms. Ruby.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
I'd like to ask you this question in closing. Where can the people find you and how can we support your mission and your journey and what you're
Mm.
looking to do for the people?
Ooh, thank you so much. You can find me on Instagram at Ruby Envy, on Facebook, Ruby Envy. I'm on LinkedIn under Kenya Aissa MS. Um, and those are the best places to get a hold of me. And yeah, you can support my journey just by, like, if anybody needs a speaker, or my books are all on. Now I'm on to my third book, you guys. I
Congratulations.
wrote, thank you. I wrote another piece for Coffee and Conversations. This is the next volume, volume 5, and that'll be on Amazon very soon. It might already be on Amazon, but I'm having people buy the book from me to donate to my best friend's favorite cancer organization because she passed of cancer in April.
Wow.
And so I wrote a story about her, and it's in the latest compilation, and I can't wait to share that.
Mm.
Amen.
But website, everything. Did you throw your
Yeah,
website out
I
there?
did. My website is rubyenvywellness.com, but it's not up yet because I've got a beautiful, wonderful woman designing it for me, and my newest iteration. So
Perfect.
soon, soon,
But
soon.
they can find you on social media, right? So Ruby Envy on
Yep,
Instagram.
Ruby Envy on all of
Right.
it, even Twitter. Ruby Envy.
There it is. Ruby Envy. I love that
Yeah.
symmetry. But if there's nothing else, then this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you again, everybody that tuned in. Do us a favor, tell a friend. We're gonna make this available on. Actually, I'll let Kat touch on that, but
No,
this
tell
will
them
be
where they can find you too, brother, before we hop off.
Let's do it. So my name is Kwesi Dreams. You can find me across social media at Kwesi Dreams. That's KWESI.dreams on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook, Alignment Agency. That's the official page for the movement. You can find me in Oakland. You can find me around the world. Just say Kwesi and I'll pop up ready to work. But that being said, where can they find you, Brother Cat?
Yeah, so you can find me at on IG at Cat Fitness 3, Facebook Cat Fitness, YouTube Cat Fitness, and the website is www.catfitnesswellnesscenter.com. Also, make sure you follow our Heal the Hood page, y'all, because this is where we're going back into the community, helping educate, motivate, and inspire those on their health journey, y'all, wherever you may be at. So on Facebook, it's Heal the Hood. On Instagram, it's Heal the Hood Podcast, and you can re-listen to this broadcasting on Spotify at Heal the Hood Podcast as well. So make sure you tune in every Tuesday at 5 p.m. We go live from our Facebook page and we can answer your direct questions each and every week. We want you guys to, this is a very interactive show, so we want you to participate as much as possible. And we want to get opinions on future topics, so we can find other guest speakers to come on and we have these conversations together, because whether you know it or not, me and Kwesi and whoever we have on here are going through our healing process as well. So we just want to allow you to join us on our healing process and be able to share your experience as well. And we can all heal together. Okay.
There it
Thank
is.
you for having me. Thank you for having me. It was a wonderful time.
It
Thank you
was a
so much.
pleasure, Miss Kenya. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule and sharing all the great information that you did with our viewers.
Yes.
We will have you on here sooner than later. We need to have you for a part 2.
Oh
If you
yeah, I'd
if
love
you
it.
want
Of course.
Kenya to come back for a part 2, hit that like and love button
Yes.
down at the bottom. Also don't forget to hit that share button. We want to get this to as many viewers out there as possible, y'all. If you're watching from our YouTube channel, make sure you like, subscribe, share, comment, the whole 9.
The
Okay.
whole
And we
9.
will see you next week. All right.
Next
Peace,
Tuesday.
y'all.
Next Tuesday, Facebook Live, 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. We'll see you right here.
All
Have a
right.
good night, y'all.
Peace out.
Peace.